The desert stretched endlessly under the brutal sun, a sea of red sand and jagged rocks where only the strongest survived. Jake McCall rode through it like a shadow, his black duster flapping behind him, his hat pulled low over piercing blue eyes that had seen too much. He wasn't a man who believed in mercy. The West had burned that out of him long ago. But fate had other plans. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Someone lay crumpled near a dying mesquite tree. A woman. Jake dismounted, his spurs jingling in the eerie silence. She was barely alive, her dress torn, her skin burned raw by the sun. A thin trail of blood stained the sand beneath her. He crouched, pressing 2 fingers to her throat. A weak pulse fluttered beneath his touch. "Damn it," he muttered. He shouldn't care. He didn't care. But something in the way her fingers twitched, like she was still fighting, made him hesitate. With a grunt, he lifted her onto his horse and rode hard for home. When Lillian woke, the world was dark and warm. The scent of wood smoke and leather filled the air. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through her ribs. "Don't move!" The voice was rough, like gravel under boots. A man sat in a chair by the fire, his face half hidden in shadow. He was big, broad-shouldered, with hands that looked like they could break a man in half. "Where am I?" Her voice was a whisper. "My ranch." He stood, his silhouette towering. "You were dying. I brought you here." She remembered now. The desert, the thirst, the men who had chased her from the last town. She had run until her legs gave out. "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer, just handed her a cup of water. "Drink." Days passed. Lillian healed slowly, her body mending under Jake's grudging care. He never spoke much, but she noticed things, the way he checked the bandages with surprising gentleness, how he left an extra blanket by her cot when the nights turned cold. One evening, as she sat by the fire, he finally asked the question she'd been dreading. "What were you running from?" She hesitated. "A saloon." "A bad man." Jake's jaw tightened. He knew what that meant. "You got anywhere to go?" She shook her head. He studied her for a long moment. Then, "Stay. Work for me. Cook, clean. I'll give you a roof and food. Some money if you last the season." It wasn't kindness. It was practicality, but it was more than anyone else had offered. "I'll stay," she said. Lillian quickly learned that Jake McCall was not a man who lived alone. Women came to the ranch, bold, beautiful women who laughed too loud and touched his arm too often. They brought whiskey and stayed the night, their giggles drifting through the thin walls. Lillian ignored it, at first. But one evening, after a particularly brazen woman had left, she couldn't hold her tongue. "Do you ever get tired of it?" she asked as she scrubbed the dishes. Jake looked up from sharpening his knife. "Of what?" "Them, the games," he smirked. "They know what they're here for." "And what's that? A few hours of your attention before you send them away?" The smirk faded. "You judging me, Lillian?" She met his gaze. "I believe a man and woman should mean something to each other, not just this." For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or something deeper. Then he stood and walked out without a word. The air between them grew tense after that. Jake was gone more often, riding out before dawn and returning long after dark. Lillian told herself she didn't care. Then came the storm. Rain lashed the ranch, turning the dirt to mud. Jake came back late, smelling of whiskey. She was mending a shirt by the fire when he stepped too close, his hand brushing her shoulder. "Jake." His grip tightened. "You think you're better than them?" His voice was low, dangerous. She shoved him back, her heart pounding. "Yes." For a moment, she thought he might argue. Then he let go, his face unreadable. He grabbed his coat and vanished into the storm. He was gone for 3 days. When he returned, he was different, quieter. He worked harder, spoke less. And Lillian began to see the man behind the legend. She saw him give his last coin to a starving family passing through, watched him stand down a gang of outlaws without firing a shot, noticed how his hands, so rough with others, were gentle with the ranch's sick animals. One evening she found him on the porch staring at the horizon. "Why do you do it?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "Do what?" "Push everyone away." A long silence. Then, easier than watching them leave. And for the first time she understood. Months passed. Seasons changed. The tension between them softened into something warmer, something real. Then came the night Jake found her by the fence, the stars blazing overhead. "I'm not good with words," he said roughly, "but I'm trying to be better." She turned. His face was open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Slowly she reached for his hand. And Jake McCall, the untamable cowboy, finally let someone in. Their love wasn't easy. It was built on fights and forgiveness, on quiet moments and hard-won trust. But in the end, beneath the endless Texas sky, they built something that lasted. A family, a future, a redemption.